Coming off a big win over the Tennessee Volunteers at home on Saturday night, Kirby Smart met with the media today to preview an out-of-conference tilt against UMASS this Saturday. Let's get into it.
Yeah, we jumped into UMASS yesterday and got started on these guys and got our players in, and we'll be moving forward with them. Heard the unfortunate news about Don Brown just recently, and I know Shane from past and recruited together on the road and been around Shane before. He's a tremendous coach, and we look forward to preparing for this game.
Yeah, Kirby, do you have an update on DILLON, and is there any kind of timeline on TREVOR being able to play again?
No update on DILLON, really. I just ran into him a few minutes ago. He got an ankle sprain, not going to require, is stable, not going to require any kind of surgery or anything. So hopeful to get him back, and same with TREVOR.
Now that's big news. Dillon Bell, I know you might look at him and say, well, he's had an up and down season this year. He hasn't done everything we hoped he would do. But the bottom line is Georgia needs as many healthy bodies as they can have moving forward. Having Dillon on the field gives that offense options. It makes one more thing that the other defenses have to prepare for if he's going to be able to play. So happy to hear it's not a high ankle sprain. That's what I thought it was originally when I saw the injury on Saturday night. So good to hear he just rolled it. Maybe that thing can heal up. They can put some tape on it, and he'll be back sooner rather than later, which would be a good thing. He's probably safe to sit out this week against UMass and be ready to go against Georgia Tech in a couple of weeks, which will be a big game. Make no doubt about it. And the same thing with ETIENNE. If he's not healthy, then there's really no reason to play him this Saturday against UMass. So I wouldn't really expect to see him. That could change, of course. Maybe they just want to get him as many reps as possible. But if I am looking at the long game, which is what Kirby has said all season, if he's not 100% full go without any sort of pain or issue, then I'm going to probably sit him against UMass and just get ready for what's waiting the next week.
Kirby, in a span of 1 week, we saw two different outcomes, I guess you may want to call it, from the offensive line. What was the biggest difference between they collectively played as a group between the Ole Miss game and last Saturday?
I don't know. It's easy to say they played better against Tennessee. I mean, that's pretty obvious. But number one, they were healthier. Number two, the environment was a little different. We did get behind, and we had to play from behind. But I think that they executed at a higher level, and we didn't really run the ball great, but we had the ability to run the ball. And success in running the ball comes in different terms these days, especially in the SEC.
Yeah, on the offensive line, Ernest and Micah don't play on.
Well, that's kind of an interesting thing there because, I mean, he didn't really have a great answer. Everything he said there is the basics of football, right? You have to execute. The healthier you are, the better you play. I did see the Georgia offensive line against Tennessee decide that they were going to move bodies. They were going to move another human. When they lined up in the I formation down on the goal line, when they really were trying to run the game on the counter trap action, you could see that they executed very well. And when they block it cleanly, there are backs, even as freshmen, who can take advantage of that. Like he said, Georgia didn't run for a lot of yards, but they were committed to it. They were going to keep trying to do it. And even if you're not running the ball well, the effect that play action has on a defense it's remarkable. And that opens up things in the pass game. And of course, we saw that they protected better. We saw that CARSON was able to put the ball on his receivers down the field a little bit more on Saturday. So one thing leads to the next. They just need to keep building on a good week against Tennessee and make it better moving forward. I'm going to have more to say about the offensive line on the podcast this week, so make sure you check that out. But I'm happy to see that they had a good week under their belt because they needed to. They needed to. And I do think that the environment was a big deal. It's different when you get behind on the road, and we saw that Tennessee had issues at Saturday night against Georgia. So there's a whole lot of merit to what Kirby said about that.
Saturday, how close were they being able to play and help you guys?
Ernest was going to be a game time decision, and he's still struggling with that arm that You know, he was out there giving everything he had against Ole Miss and didn't have complete strength in his left arm, which is hard to use at left tackle. And we're hoping that he continues to gain strength. MICAH was close to being able to go and might have been an emergency Saturday, but it's not completely healthy. But he's going to be, you know, out there working today and trying to get back in.
I mean, as you can hear Kirby say, they clearly are not a well football team. They need time to heal. I do, like, again, I'm going to talk about the offensive line this week on the live stream. So that's something to watch out for. But it does matter if you're not healthy, 100%. But I also think there's a lot to be said for rotating for the sake of rotating. So we'll get into that later. But I'm happy to hear that those guys are progressing because, as I said, Georgia's playing the long game here. They need these healthy bodies moving forward.
Yeah, Coach, how'd you feel like MONROE Freeling played after watching the tape?
Well, he had some oversets. He had a couple times that CARSON did a nice job moving in the pocket and gave up some pressure, but he really competed hard, played physical, got better kind of as the game went on. Thought he had some jitters early, but he's very bright and continues to work really hard.
No surprise that he got better as the game went along. I mean, that's one of those things that you would imagine big offensive linemen do. They like to get a little dirty, get a little physical, sort of get a lather up, and then lean on other people. So, I mean, I thought Freeling played pretty well, but Kirby nailed the most obvious thing right off the top, which was there were occasions where he overset, got beat cleanly, simply because he was out of position with bad feet. So things you can learn, things you can, improve on, and that's what Georgia has to do moving forward.
Coach, you guys didn't have any turnovers this past Saturday, but the ball did hit the ground a few times. How did you feel about the ball security in the game and kind of for the season,
Well, it's funny because I look at it as a defensive coach when I watched our offensive tape and I actually thought we had better ball security against Ole Miss than we did against Tennessee. And a lot of people they can't acknowledge the difference. So I was very positive with our team after Ole Miss and emphasized that there were less exposures of the ball than what we had. Although they took the ball away from Nate. He didn't have bad ball security. There's a difference. There's a takeaway and then there's exposures. And unfortunately for your business, they just look out the same, and that is not the case. And we had bad exposures Saturday. And we've had some bad exposures throughout the year, like when guys catch balls and the ball's loose. I'm honestly more focused on our defense, why we don't get people with bad exposures, because the teams we play have more bad exposures than we do, but we don't get more out. So I'm trying to solve that problem.
Oh, it's always a double-edged sword, two sides to every coin. But Kirby makes a good point there about the difference between exposures and having the ball ripped away from you. It is absolutely a thing. Ball high and tight, close to the body, 3 points of control, all those sorts of things are the basics that every ball carrier should have. I want to just point this out, not for nothing, because there have been great backs throughout the history of the game that have not been someone that does this. But I've noticed that with Nate Frazier, and it could be a freshman thing or it could really just be a comfort level thing, but he always keeps the ball in his right arm. And when you run to the left side, the ball's in your right arm, it makes it easier for the defense to get to. Generally, you're going to coach it to where if you're running left, you're going to switch the ball to your outside arm, put your body between you and the defender. It decreases the opportunities and makes it harder for a defender to then reach around and punch the ball out. So it's not just Nate, but I've noticed that consistently with him. I cannot recall an instance where he switched the ball from the right arm to the left arm to put it to the sideline. And the same thing could be said for Arian Smith the other night on the ball that got knocked away from him. He had it high and tight, 3 points of control. If anything, he might have had it a little too high, and the guy was able to get his fist in there and punch at it, but it was on the inside. It was on his right arm. The sideline was on his left side. If he'd switched the ball to the outside arm, he limits the exposure, thus, just by the law of averages, reducing the opportunities for that ball to be punched out by a defender. So I would like to see the Dogs do a better job of that, but it's not a deal breaker. Sometimes players can be great without ever doing that. But if you're talking about reducing the number of opportunities for a turnover to happen, that's a very small but efficient way that any ball carrier can do that.
Kirby, you guys have a chance to be 10-2 at the end of the regular season. Is it better for Georgia, given the turnaround time and the length of the playoff and the possibility of going 10-3, not to go to the SEC championship game?
I don't think that's a hypothetical that, the focus is on UMASS. I mean, it really is. So why would I put energy or time into trying to figure out what the best pathway is, including the SEC championship, when I'm worried about UMass? I just don't think it's a quality conversation.
Well, that's Kirby just sticking to his guns right there. He's going to walk the walk. He's going to talk about UMass this week, and he's going to leave it to everybody like me and you and everybody else that wants to put their opinion out there to have an opinion about whether or not it's good for Georgia to play in the SEC championship game. Before the season began, Kirby, he stood by his position that he's always held, which is winning the SEC is a big deal. That's something they want to achieve, and it's a goal of theirs every season. Now that we're living through this 12-team playoff, he's not going to answer it this week, but it will be interesting to see once the season is over if Kirby changes his position on that and just how diminished the value of a conference championship game has become. It's up to you to decide whether or not you think winning trophies is important, right? I'm not going to argue with you either way. I'm just saying it's a choice you have to make, and it's a choice that every coach is going to have to make moving forward, especially given the fact that in the SEC, you can't expect that you're going to be going undefeated year after year moving forward. So the odds and opportunities of you having a chance to win a trophy in Atlanta are going to be diminished. If you get that opportunity, it's still a nice thing to be able to put the number on the wall, to put the trophy in the trophy case. Does that make it valuable enough to run the risk of injury, right, if you're trying to win a national title? Everybody has to make their own choice there. And I, for one, am interested in what Kirby's going to say moving forward.
Kirby, the Tennessee coach brought it up, but just it kind of come to light the way that the whole substitution rule works. I know you're on the rules committee where the defense has times to substitute. It almost looks like some kind of cat and mouse where they're trying to sub as slowly as possible to maybe get a delay a game or a timeout. How's that supposed to work, and what are we starting to see happen a little bit in college football?
I mean, the coaches know how it's supposed to work, or at least they're supposed to know how it works. I mean, in terms of what you're given, and the issue is every conference officiates it differently. I've watched teams really late at night, so you can imagine where they're playing, what part of the country they're in, where that's completely accepted in terms of take as long as you want. They don't actually let you do that in our league, and that's really to benefit the teams that play with pace. Because if they allow you to sub and take all the time you want, then you really slow teams down. And, there's not a game that I played in that they don't come over there and tell you either got to speed your guys up or we're going to set it on the ready for play, and we're going to wind the clock, because people have made it where if an offense makes a mistake and subs late, they're going to make them burn a timeout. Everybody tries to do it. We even try to do it. But you can't do it at the expense of there's 24 seconds, there's 23 seconds on the clock, and we're going to go sub a guy and take 20 seconds up, because that isn't what it takes. A lot of people say, well, they say you have to sub in 3 seconds. No, you have to start the substitution process in 3 seconds. That's how long you have to start the process. But it doesn't say once you start the process, you can go at a snail's pace off. They give you a reasonable amount of time, and they give you an opportunity to snap the ball. So that's the rule. And if somebody subs with 10 seconds left on the shot clock, they're probably going to get a delay of game if somebody tries to sub on defense. But if they do it with 20, there's reasonable time to sub.
Yeah, I'm glad he explained it that way. When I saw this in the game, me and Mrs. Beast were talking about it in the moment live. We're like, that dude's walking off the field. You can't do that. And I was thrilled to see that the referee set the ball ready for play. You have a reasonable amount of time. You know you're getting off the field. Put the ball down, move your big ass off the field, Let's get this thing going. And it's like Kirby said, it is so rich that the Tennessee head coach wants to have anything to say about this, given the fact that his team has been implicated in faking injuries and the fact that his team runs with pace. And this rule is in place to benefit those teams and not give the defense an advantage. Rich. Hypocritical would be another way to say it. Ridiculous and completely unfounded is how I am going to say it. Ridiculous. What the referees did in this instance on Saturday night between the University of Georgia and the Tennessee Volunteers was absolutely appropriate.
Kirby, we saw Tate in that Ole Miss game, struggling, trying to fight through, comes out. What did you think of the job he did against Tennessee, coming back out there and playing that whole game?
He was healthier. I mean, he dinged his ankle in Ole Miss, and it was a tough situation that he felt he needed to try to go and help the team. And that's just what I respect about Tate is, some guys would say, well, I don't want to look bad. I don't want I'll hurt my draft status. Tate said, I'm going to go out there and fight. I'm going to give you everything I got. And he probably shouldn't have been out there, but he stayed out there and fought. But he's still not healthy, but he was healthier this week and practiced and played better.
And that, I think that's the point. And you've heard Kirby say it 100 times. You have to be able to practice well to play well. And if Tate couldn't practice last week in the run up to Mississippi, I get that he wants to go out there and play, but you had to pull him out of the game because he looked not good. It was not good. And so to get him out of the game and give it the best shot with at least somebody who's a little bit more healthy was the move right there. So glad he's getting healthier. Glad he was back. I believe he earned co-offensive lineman player of the week this week inside the conference. So good for him. Congratulations. Now let's continue to heal and improve as we move forward.
CHAZ CHAMBLISS has 4.5 sacks in his last 3 games. What's allowed him to be that productive in terms of actually getting and taking down the quarterback, and how would you assess he did at fullback on Saturday on that last touchdown for Nate?
He's tough. He's physical, and when we had the offensive line injuries, we were forced to find another fullback body type because we'd been using MICAH there, and we've had guys out. So I think Chaz's work ethic, his buy-in, his leadership, his film study. Chaz knows what people are running before we do as coordinators sometimes because he looks at so much tape, and he uses those cues to help him and make plays. And, he benefited a little bit Saturday. They weren't all sacks are not necessarily your play. Somebody else did a really good job and forced the guy to you. He capitalized on opportunities, and I love the way he's working and playing with toughness.
I'm happy for him because Chaz is one of those dudes among a number of players that have caught a lot of ire from Georgia Bulldogs fans over the years, and most of it's unwarranted. And I'm happy to see that things are breaking his way. He's getting a few numbers. He's getting a little shine, getting lined up in the backfield. And what's more than that is he attacked that role, which shouldn't have surprised any of us given the way he has attacked his role at the outside linebacker position. But he put his hand in the ground, shot himself into the hole, delivered a blow, and was crucial on what was a brilliantly executed run play by the Georgia Bulldogs to put Nate Frazier in the end zone to ice that game against Tennessee. So, yeah, take your flowers, Chaz. That was awesome. I was personally happy to see you there. Frankly, I think he did a better job in his one opportunity than MICAH has done all year. So, I like MICAH fine. But from what I've seen on tape, I only know what you show. I'm putting Chaz back there because in the future, think about it. Next time maybe you play action the ball, he slips out and you throw it to him. I doubt MICAH's going to be able to do that. Chaz gives you that option. I'm here for it.
Yeah, to follow up on Tate, how have you seen him handle this year mentally with being out of the lineup, and how has he still tried to be a leader without being on the field as much during the weekend on Saturdays?
Yeah, he's Tate. I mean, he's a lunch pail, working man's guy. I mean, that whole offensive line unit, guys. There's a lot of snaps between DILLON, Fairchild, Jared, MICAH, Truss, Tate, and EARNEST. I mean, no bones about it. Those guys are the core of our team.
Kirby, CARSON was kind of joking with us after the Tennessee game that he is a dual threat quarterback. Would you like him to run more? Should he be running more?
I don't, I look at it as Carson makes good decisions on when to run. And he's done a great job this year to me. There's nowhere I could say, ooh, man, I wish you'd pulled it down and ran. I could say, I wish you'd have thrown it to the check down. But I can't say that you should have pulled it down and ran. I think he makes good decisions on when to do that. And I think our offensive staff does a tremendous job of utilizing his ability to run on certain plays. I mean, that was a design run on one of those plays. I mean, people think it was a scramble, but there was a scramble for a touchdown, but there was an empty play where he counted the box and knew what we wanted him to do, and he broke tackles.
And that's interesting because he doesn't necessarily want him to run. You have to ask, well, why? He's shown he can be effective at it. The thing is, Carson Beck is the most important player on this team. He showed you on Saturday night why he was considered a first-round draft pick heading into the season. Carson's been the same dude the whole year. He's made bad decisions at points. But when you know what you have at quarterback and you know what you're asking of him and you believe that he gives you the best chance to win and he is a pocket-style guy first and foremost, then no, you don't want him running all over the place because you don't want him to get broken. But that doesn't mean that you can't run him. Think back to when Matthew Stafford was at Georgia. Matt Stafford is a Super Bowl winning quarterback who is going to be in the NFL Hall of Fame. Matt Stafford is a pocket passer. Matt Stafford pulled the ball a few times in his time at Georgia and scored a few key touchdowns, picked up a few key first downs. So just because you're a pocket guy doesn't mean you can't run the ball if you're an athlete. And Carson Beck is an athlete. Now that's on tape. Maybe people will respect it a little more. I would run it once a game, maybe twice, save it for when I think I really need it. But there's no reason that Carson Beck should not utilize that part of his game, especially if he does what he did on Saturday night, works well inside the pocket, and when he sees the Red Sea part, if you will, and nothing but green grass in front of him, step through the pocket, pick up what you can pick up, first down, touchdown, whatever it is, and move the chains. Put yourself in a better position. That's what football players do. Carson Beck, just keep being a football player, and the Dogs are going to be fine.
Kirby, Holly Rowe reported Trevor Etienne has fractured ribs. What's the recovery time for that? And I don't think I said JOENEL AGUERO. Is he dealing with something also?
Yeah, JOENEL had a pin. So he got injured in the Ole Miss game, but he's available to play. So he had to get I don't know the technical term for it. I don't have it with me, but he got a pin put in his hand, pinky, and was cleared to play, but was going to struggle to play in a club. And so he practiced last week and was available to play, but he didn't get to really use the hand real well. It was a little tender. So he's in the same situation this week, but he's post screw getting put in. So we think he's going to be closer to being able to play. In terms of Trevor, we're hoping to get him back. I mean, it's what I can tell you. I mean, he's going to have an opportunity. I mean, ribs are a painful injury, right? And I don't actually know if that's the exact term, but he does have rib injury, and we hope to get him back.
Well, there you go. On the report, it was listed as an upper body injury, but I think we all knew he had a bit of a rib thing going on. And it's like Kirby said, hopefully he can get back sooner rather than later. It was interesting to hear about AGUERO there, though, that he had a little something going on. But same to him. Hopefully he can get healed up. And that's what this game's going to be against UMASS for Georgia. They're going to show up, hopefully handle their business, have a good half, get out of the game, get ready mentally, and save your body physically for what's lying next week. Because when the Jackets roll in between the hedges on Black Friday, they are bringing a hornet's nest with them. And that home field advantage that Georgia had against Tennessee is going to have to show up against Georgia Tech. But Tech's not going to come in there scared. They're going to be ready to play. So the Dogs have to take care of their business against UMass. Hopefully we can get through that thing healthy and then move on down the road as we head toward the end of this season. That's it for this week. Y'all enjoy the games. And until next time, go Dogs!
Told him, how about them fucking dogs? That's what I told him.